Order. And in light of the clerk not being here, I will declare that we have a quorum of the village board. And I will move down to number 3 and ask everybody to stand and face the flag. We will have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And moved by Duncan, approved by, second by Mitchell. Anybody see anything on there they want pulled for further discussion? Hearing no request, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Public comments, anybody with public comments? Okay, without objection, we are going to move the airport commission report up to the president's report. They're basically one and the same. So Jeremy is here for his quarterly report on the airport activities. And also he's going to explain the resolution that we've passed many times in all the years of the airport, but I thought it'd be a good thing for the trustees to know that.
Is that resolution further down? Would you like me to stick around and talk about it then, or should I talk about it all at once? Where did the resolution go?
Whatever you told me at the last airport commission meeting.
Right in your same section.
It is, okay.
What did you tell him? I don't
With
like,
his report.
I don't like being interrupted, okay? I was speaking with him.
Sure.
Take it the way you want it.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody should have received, I put on everybody, in front of every one of the name tags, the 2021 annual report. This is a synopsis of all of our activity from last year. I don't know that if you'd like me to, I could go through it line by line. Otherwise, if you just want to look at the highlights and that, see if there's anything that brings up any questions, I will point out just in general that, as would be assumed, activity out there was tremendous last year, between bouncing back from COVID and the Sand Valley's continuation of their development out there. Had the best fuel sales year we've ever had by a large margin. We've got a lot of momentum that we continue to have for updating and upgrading facilities, services, you name it out there. Anything that's been unfortunately neglected for years and decades in many cases, we're catching up with, and the development continues to happen out there. The big one in the near future is going to be that fuel system replacement, which is supposed to be underway already, but due to supply chain issues and the contractor who won the bid tried jacking the price up $70,000 after they had already committed to a price. You know, when they got the bid, they came back with a change order before they even had a shovel in the ground, and that battle between the contractor and the Bureau of Aeronautics, who was enforcing the contract as it had been signed, pushed the development or the start date for that project back until early April. Either way, it's going to be a blessing when that fuel system is redone. We're grossly undercompetent when it comes to storage capacity, and pumping cabinets are old, and just it's time for an upgrade, especially when we've got as much fuel flowing through that system as we do. So that'll be a good one. Some upcoming projects or future projects are listed there as well. We're going to get the hard to believe that many of those payments out there. Well, I guess it's hard to believe that I've been here 6 years already, but the payments out there, they're ready to be backfilled and resealed already. If we're going to prolong the health of that investment, I've said it many times that I'm certainly not going to be, or I don't envy the person who's going to be here when all that asphalt is failing at the same time, considering all that asphalt was developed within a 3 or 4 year span there. So as much as we can protect that, we're certainly trying to do so. Again, I mentioned activity levels, well, sales and revenues on page 2 and leaking into page 3. You'll be able to see the significant year-over-year increases from 20 to 21. And I guess in general, that my annual report, there are obviously many events and little projects that we've done listed there as well. Again, I'm happy to answer questions about any of those if you see something that you'd like a little more explanation of, or
Anybody would like to talk to Jeremy?
So what was the final conclusion on the contractual cost difference?
they're enforcing that contractor keeps its bid price. That contractor also has the fuel system at Baraboo Dells, so the Bureau of Aeronautics was able, and they didn't try the same thing for that system, whatever reason, they didn't try asking for more money for that. So the Bureau was able to say, well, if, because they threatened to back out and say, well, we're not gonna build it, and they're gonna lose, they have a 10%, was it construction guarantee bond or something like that, approximately $50,000. They were gonna take the $50,000 loss and just walk on this project, but then the Bureau said, well, you do that, you lose the project at Baraboo Dells too.
Oh,
So
very
the
good.
Bureau used a little bit of its leverage and its, I guess, buying power, you might say, to assure that not only are we getting it done, but we're getting it done at the price that was originally bid. So Waltz Petroleum probably won't be very happy, and they'll probably take a little bit of a loss on that project, but at least we're not on the hook for any more money, not a penny more than what was originally signed. So
the cost of some of your projects, does that all come from revenue of the fire or the airport? Like the obstruction removal and stuff, that big price tag there?
Yep.
Where does that stuff come from?
90% federal, 5% state, and 5% local. So the 5% that comes locally, it mostly comes out of the profit made on the airport revenues. So basically, the money that we make on the airport fuel sales is the majority of our 5% match on these 90/5/5 projects, as they're called, when you've got federal and state money backing the local money. So on $1 million project, you could say, what would that be? $900,000 would be federal, 50,000 would be state, 50,000 would be local on a flat $1 million project.
Cool.
And when I say local, that's airport.
Yeah.
funds.
Okay, I'm just curious.
So all of these are, well, actually, the crack fill is a state project, and they run that at a 95% state, 5% local as well. So
Jeremy?
like I'm always happy to have folks come out and visit, take a tour, come out and see what's going on out there, stop in and visit if anytime you're in the area. Always welcome interested visitors, so feel free to if you'd like.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Item number 2, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-02 to support collaborative petition for the request to the Secretary of Transportation for state and federal funding for the airport improvements in 2022 and beyond. And of course, that includes Wisconsin Rapids, Grand Rapids, Tecumseh, and Port Edward.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Grundon, second by Duncan. Any discussion?
Would you like me just to do a little brief explanation of what this is? Okay. In order for the commission to get in line for federal and state funding, the commission has to have a 6-year capital improvement plan that's presented to the Bureau of Aeronautics. The Bureau of Aeronautics takes every airport's 6-year plan and acts on our collective behalf when they ask for federal funding for these projects statewide. This by no means is a monetary obligation. This isn't. This comes at no price tag. This isn't a commitment to do anything. This is merely us getting in line and demonstrating our desire to potentially pursue future funding, future grants, and then of course the development projects that precipitate from that. So the reason it comes to this municipality as it does to the other 3 is because if this were a city-owned or a county-owned, it's a one municipality votes on its own behalf. The commission votes on 4 municipalities' behalves. So the Bureau, in order to legitimize the commission's collective decision, goes back to each of the member municipalities as well for their individual ratification of that decision to assure, really, I guess, that no one municipality can feel, and none of the municipalities could feel unrepresented by the commission's decision.
Okay, anybody else have anything else? Hearing no request to speak further, all those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Jeremy, you're more than welcome to stay around, but I know this is the time you just smile and wave and out the door you go.
Is there anything really exciting on the agenda that I should stick around for?
Thank you again, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
thanks again for having me, folks. I'll see you in a couple months.
Thanks.
Police and Fire Commission did not meet. I have not heard anything. Have you, Boz, on them, what they're gonna do?
Not till April.
So hopefully, Scott is supposed to be back pretty soon, so. All right, Public Works Committee did not meet, but chairman's comments.
We didn't have anything worthwhile actually to hold a meeting for us, so it's probably my only comment. Boz has a report in his report that things are moving along and winter activities are being taken care of, so we're in a good place as far as I know.
Boz?
Exactly right.
Okay, Parks and Recreation.
We met February 24th, talked with Ben and Boz about where to put the tree dedication for John. I think we're gonna do that right out front here. They're gonna take down a tree that needs to go anyway. Also discuss park maintenance expectations by the committee and the trustees, and just making sure that we're communicating what the expectations are with the crew. Talked a lot about the disc golf area and what kind of needs to be done back there. Otherwise, not a whole lot. Les Boz, do you have anything to add?
No.
Then that's it. Next meeting is March 24th.
What type of tree are we?
Did we,
The forester is gonna choose one.
yeah, Jerish was
It's
gonna look
gonna
at the different kinds.
Mirror what we have out front here, so I think it's gonna be a blooming tree. I don't know exactly what type.
All right.
Okey dokey, Public Safety.
We met on March 1st. I'd like to, it's in the chairman's comments, but with chief here and stuff too, I'd like to thank, we had a couple different structure fires in the last month. So I'd like to thank Jason Leverance and the Public Works Department in a whole to allowing us to use their trucks to pull ladders and hoses and stuff like that. It helps us immensely. Chief gave his report, still working with some issues on engine one. There's no progress with the youth apprenticeship program right now. We're still kind of waiting to hear back from that grant. Police report was nothing special. Talk about some upcoming things, and our next meeting is 5 April. Pretty short and sweet.
Any questions for Eric? Okey dokey, committee, the next to, Eric, I'm sorry, you're up again right away with,
Keep it going.
Finance Human Resource.
We met on 3 March, lasted longer than 4 minutes this time. We had a discussion on fee schedule. There's some updates that needed to be done on that. They have not been updated in 3-4 years. Has anybody had any questions on the fee schedule? No? With that, I'll make a motion to approve the 22 fee schedule.
Second.
Motion by Chairman Saylor, Dana, but I think Betsy, you beat him to the punch. Motion by Saylor and Mansell to approve the 2022 fee schedule. Any discussion?
Red are your changes. Per the directive of the committee, we added business license and short-term rental, but no charges now. That'll be presented at a later date to the committee for a recommendation, but I wanted to have a placeholder in the fee schedule for that. No other major changes as, other than the red stuff.
What about a cost to fill a pool?
We've added that because that was already approved. So
That was in there.
$250 per pool, one trip.
Just a comment, doesn't have to be done now. I had suggested it last time around, actually having a license, a minimal license charge for operating an ATV within the village, so that we know who actually is doing it.
I'll honk when I drive by your house.
That's fine. I'm done in a few weeks.
Chairman Saylor,
So,
would you like to
As long
comment?
as I don't have a cross burning in my yard, I'm good.
In case you didn't hear it, it was whoa, whoa, whoa.
No, I get
For the
that.
record.
Yeah, I even heard Dan, so.
I mean, we have licenses for everything else. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but
I mean,
I'm one voice for a bunch of people. I mean, for your bicycles, you have to have a license,
Yes.
so.
$5 would be more than enough. I just want to know who is, because so that the police know who can operate, who's falling within
Oh,
the
yeah, I get that.
guidelines,
My
who's
bad.
violating the village policy. Do with it what you want.
I don't think I'm gonna ask anybody, because we got 3 trustees smiling over here and one going whoa over there. So I think we would kind of leave it at that.
I think it should be noted on there, maybe in green, you know, and then we can talk about it.
Sure, you can add it to, well, I would recommend we add it to the next public safety meeting to discuss.
Yeah.
And if it's of value, we can kick it to FHR for the number discussions.
Another sticker, look like a NASCAR on my.
Go
And if
ahead.
that's a problem, I mean, my son-in-law has access, somebody that has a Sherman tank. I'll have him bring it down from Eau Claire and we'll operate that on the city or on the village property and see
Weight
how.
restrictions by.
Well,
Yeah, wait for the flags to come off.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Just Port Road.
So just a question, who like enforces the bicycle licenses, dog, like, how do we know this?
We really.
Bike licenses?
Yeah.
I haven't had anything to do with it for a long time. I don't know what they're doing now, but we just collected them, and
But like, nobody's stopping kids on the bike or on their bikes and being like, hey, where's your license?
yeah, well, we went from the annual to the permanent,
Just one and done,
so, yeah.
got it.
And what's the annual income?
Oh, I mean, it's an on your honor system. I doubt we collected more than $30-40 last year.
In bicycle licenses?
Sure. People just on their honor come by and do it because they're used to
Sailors.
doing it.
Just like.
What we will do moving forward is at these bike rodeos that we're gonna restart up. There'll be a discussion we'll have with the adults when their kids participating in the bike rodeo to issue that license at that time, collect the fee, and then use that as a pot of money for bike safety training in the future. It's not going to the general fund. It's,
That's where it always used to go.
well, to the general fund.
Yeah.
But in this case, it'll go through the general fund back to the police community engagement, kind of like we do with the pet fees and that type of stuff. So,
It's the same
It'll
thing,
be
yeah.
wailing and gnashing of teeth, but oh well, what is it, $5? now?
Yeah, the pet fees are the same thing. Used to be that when we paid our taxes on the 31st, we bought our dog license. Except last year, we ended up putting it in the box because of COVID. And so we didn't get a dog license. So both of my dogs have been illegal for the last year. So, yep, that's me. And
Take 'em away.
didn't realize that until I looked at their collars just recently. And I think we bought it for this coming year, but the year before not.
Take it out of
So-
stipend.
It's just so that we have some concept of what we have in the village, I would assume, how many dogs, so that, and have some tracking device, so if there's problems, we know where the dogs are.
They're, dog license, we get a few $100s a year, so that's a lot more receptive to our citizens, supporting that.
There's not a month that goes by the Judicial and Legislative County Committee, which I sit on at the county, we spent at least 15 minutes a meeting talking about dog licenses. And the county clerk really keeps tabs on that because some state law on it or something, so. What I thought was just a pass the time, let us know how many dogs are registered, it's really, you gotta keep track of that.
So who are they controlling? Anybody that's not within a village or a city? Who has to have a dog license through the county?
If you got a dog, you have to have a license, the owner of the dog.
It's county
So
license.
an owner in Port
County
Edward
license separate from the village?
needs a county and a village?
No, he's
Oh.
okay, you know, it's the county license, I'm sorry, I
Yes,
misunderstood.
we're, yes, exactly, the president's exactly right. We were buying the county license, they're giving us the county license.
Oh,
We issue
okay.
it and then we give a portion of our money back to the county.
Oh, okay, didn't know that.
So if trustee doesn't know that, obviously their dogs are not licensed, so.
I don't have a
Have them
dog.
come to the next judicial legislative meeting. And by the way,
My bike
our new
is in
criminal
here.
justice coordinator reports to that committee, so. She's doing a bang up job too.
Um,
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
we gotta vote yet.
Oh,
So before we get carried away again, all those in favor of the motion to approve the 2022 fee schedule signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Okay, Eric, thank you.
I think all you guys are
Number
pretty much
three.
at that our meeting anyways, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't explain it. We. Oh, we had a discussion on the board strategic meeting with up to 15 attendees and not to exceed at the hotel meeting, not to exceed $2,000 on 23 April. So I am looking for a motion to approve that.
Moved.
Second.
I had a motion by, read the motion complete first.
The motion is to approve the board strategic meeting, 15 attendees and professional development exercise on 23 April 22 in Wisconsin Rapids at the hotel mead, not to exceed $2,000 in costs.
Who was the motion? Dana
Yes,
and Betsy?
Sure.
as the one member
Okay.
who's certainly not going to benefit from this, I'll move.
Well, you could come anyway. It'd be a lot of fun to have you there. It might help you in the school
No,
board.
no. None of you would have fun if I were there.
Wow, I don't know.
I suppose I could tell all my jokes.
Is there any discussion? Did we cap it at?
The room goes
2,000?
silent.
That's worst case scenario. I don't see it being more than
The
that.
best
That's more
jokes I
than
can't tell the
1,000.
public.
And we got the,
It's just paying for the rooms use as well as food for the day, so
Yeah.
that's where the cost's gonna come in. We're not doing hotel
Yeah.
rooms right now.
since that'll be like, if memory serves me right, $400 or $500 over that we don't have, you were gonna do some checking.
Well, sure, yeah. That's a worst case 2,000. It's gonna be more than $1,000.
Would that come out of contingency then?
It would come out a combination of board / contingency. We will move money for contingency in the board, yeah.
All right. All right, any other discussion?
Just to clarify, how much exactly will be moved out of contingency?
Until I get the quote back from the mead. Right now, the only thing confirmed from the mead is $300 for the room use for the day.
Okay.
And then they're working up the cost for the food throughout the day.
Could you report that back to everybody?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
I've been spending 6 years saying that we need to have actual financial tags on every motion.
Yes.
So we know exactly how much it costs and where the budget is, but just a parting comment.
All those in favor of the motion as read by the chairman will signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And then lastly, we talked about a resolution that day.
We need a resolution just for the dog and cat fees based on it's a county
Oh, okay,
process.
because of the fee schedule. and-
Yes.
Okay, so I will make, And chickens, maybe.
No.
Animals,
Back off with
animals
those
in general.
chickens.
Birds,
She's exempt.
Down at Dollar.
not when they cross over off her egg property line. they're
That's
not.
not my problem anymore.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-03, increasing the village fees for the dog, cat, and animal licensing. And I'll even add on there as per the fee schedule.
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Chairman Taylor, second by trustee Duncan. How does this fit in with the county? We have to have this for the county?
We required a resolution because we're changing a county fiscal number that we've had for years. That's all. We don't cite the number in the resolution, we cite our fee schedule.
So how much will the dog fee be? So I know whether Matt or Amy need to pick bags.
It is $10 up from
Well,
Yeah.
It's from what to
Not
what?
gonna break your
from
bank.
$8 to $10.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought
It's
you
a
said
not
20.
spayed or neutered.
Yeah.
I suppose it's all right.
Goes to
11,
$5,
there's a
$10
question.
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah,
regular.
Yeah, so you goes, yeah, either way, $2-3.
So he just gave you all the information, Mr. Chairman, and you were gabbing to the guy that's soon to depart, as he prefers to be called now.
I hear his dogs a lot more than I hear his dog.
And by the way, those chickens, you slow down and they move.
Oh,
Not
Most of the
one.
time.
Yeah, I saw one that didn't. I've been the slow
I
one.
think for the rest of the meeting, we don't call Dana by name, we call him dearly departed.
There you
With that, that's all I had. Nathan.
Well,
Thank
the
God,
cat's gonna be
we're gonna have to take a
arriving
vote though on
soon.
the resolution,
go. Yes.
okay?
It's under construction in my garage.
So having totally lost control of the meeting, Chief, would you want to come and sit up here for a while and make sure we get, bring the 2.5-inch hose with you? Just to everyone. Okay, all those in favor of the resolution, increasing village fees for dogs, cats, and animal licensing, but not chickens, will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, Chairman dearly departed, finding them ledge, Claire.
All right, we met March 3rd. I'll entertain a motion to approve the CSM for Jeremy Fink. Has nothing to do with us, it's just a formality, so, well, in fact, I'll move it so that we can avoid having delay.
Is somebody-
Second.
Okay, Chairman, Trustee Grundon will help Dana push that along. Thank you. GRUN. Any discussion? Hearing no request to speak, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
I've done my
carried.
job if I get Joe flustered. Anyway, then we have a motion to approve the re-subdivision of the DMI final plat for county and state certification and approval for the DMI development.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Grundon. Boz, you wanna?
Yeah, those of you that weren't in pit, there's no products because all this is it's the original plat, the survey that they submitted 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. They did the initial plat. It sat in the village because of the issues with DMI back and forth. So now that we're on a different speaking grounds with them and working through some issues, we're needing to resubmit that for state certification since they took a large parcel and split it into 18 little parcels. Anytime you go over if 4 parcels split, you have to get state approval. So that's what's driving this. So it's just an administrative action. Our approval now gives the permission to send it to state rubber stamps it, comes back to us, and it becomes an official platted property.
Any questions for Boz? Hearing no request to speak, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. And before we move on, Dana, I want to thank you for your service on that DMI issue with Boz, as chairman of the PIP committee, because there's a few days that I was privy to your initial conversation with Mr. Moore. And some people might not think it proper, but since you basically were told not to do anything by their attorney, I thought you accomplished what was good to set out for. Boz may have had to do some damage control, but damn it, you got the job done.
Well, as an old cop, you perfectly well understand the good cop, bad cop scenario, and I've always been very good at being the bad cop.
Okay, moving on, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then we have a motion to approve the migration of village IT services and support to the county IT department as of 1 April 2022 for the cost not to exceed $25,000, which involves $16,000 of equipment, $9,000 annual support.
Second.
Okay, motion by Chairman Duncan, second by Trustee Mitchell. Boz, I would like so.
Yeah, so we are in discussion now to Dana's point, to specifically drill into that number. So the 25,000 is a worst case scenario based on discussion with county. County is now, that's why it's in 1 April for this next few weeks. We're going to be reviewing our server stack, our individual laptops and desktops, and refining that equipment number. The support number is set. It's $9,000 from this point forward. Right now, we're paying about $11,000. So we're definitely gonna be saving money annually moving forward. It's the equipment number, the upfront cost to get into the county system. We're having to identify and replace some existing software, mainly hardware, to bring us to a place where we fall under the umbrella of the county. Everything's guaranteed, equipment's replaced on a regular cycle, and we don't have that right now. So I owe you, and I'll have both of those issues at the FHR meeting, the hard number for this strategic meeting, hard number for this to specify. But if you give us a $25,000 cap, then I can continue to have discussions with the county. So.
I think I personally will. Go
Well, I
ahead.
just was gonna comment that likely we were gonna have to spend 16,000 in hardware just to upgrade our current hardware anyway.
Okay.
Over the next year to 18, 24 months. So from a strategic, it's actually probably a pretty decent investment.
Having been on the county board almost 10 years and on the committee at one time that oversaw IT, they are consummate professionals. I know I'm sticking up for my team, but I will. And when you look at what they're going to call or charge us, and Boz, correct me if I'm wrong, for an after-hours call is much lower, much more reasonable than you would get from the other vendor.
25% compared to what we're paying now.
Go ahead.
So when you speak to professionals, thank you, Eric, for your skill set and what you brought to the table. That was pretty valuable. And you were asking all the right questions that I was really like, what are we talking about? So
I appreciate
appreciate
that. I do have some questions. I had another question though.
I would second that.
You know, the $16,000 equipment, that's a pretty fair number. But what I would like to see, I mean, you're talking 6 to 10 laptops, somewhere in there, servers, whatever. If you do half now, I would pick your 3 best, 4 best, and leave them alone. And that number would come down also, but replace 4, and then in 2 years, replace the other 4. So you have a life cycle, just like police cars, just like everything else. So you don't have every 4 to 5 years or whatever, it's a bigger chunk. At least if you pay a little bit every couple of years, then you're good to go. That's what we do in the district, and just makes budgeting a little easier. So other than that, I think price wise.
And I second Tiara's comments.
Shouldn't there be like a 5-year plan as far as hardware?
That's what we sign up for going with the county. We don't have that now.
Okay, and that will be a 5-year plan
It's a
that
set
they will
at 5.
provide us. Okay.
Any piece that we own for them, it's replaced at a minimum. Well, it is replaced every 5 years. It's no way at a minimum. So,
Yeah, it's much easier and cost efficient to do that than to send your office manager and assistant office manager to Walmart to buy up every laptop before the shutdown for COVID. So
one final point, there is a second and third order effect to this, which is a benefit to the village, is that because we're going with the county, because of the higher levels of cybersecurity, two-factor authentication that we don't have now, we will see a decrease in our insurance rates. Because right now, we are not in compliance, so we're having to pay a higher cybersecurity rate. So this will put us under the umbrella, so in my discussion with the insurance folks, now insurance is going up regardless, but at least for cybersecurity, we'll see a lesser rate, so that's
It
good.
should be significantly less because from what I'm gathering from talking to people, about 95% of businesses in the public do not have two-step authentication, do not have random 10-digit passwords, and those two alone increase your security significantly, and not to mention having firewalls and all the rest of that stuff that I'm just shocked at how little there is out there.
Well, case in point, my iPad is just about defunct now. It's only 10 years old. I thought I'd last longer than that. But I got the county's iPad out, called up, got permission to use it for non-county business. And they were kind of surprised at that because most supervisors don't, they just go ahead and do it. But I tried to answer my village emails on that, and each and every time I logged in here, I got the big warning, this is an unsecured site. And I mean, I had a call up there and Lisa, one of the techs, showed me how to, bypass that. But even when you bypassed it to get in, it kept, in a lot of the emails, I couldn't even open.
We have through Dirks, and this is what we pay for, we have bare bones cybersecurity. I could have a damn monkey at my desk hitting my damn keyboard with a hammer, and that'd be more security than we have through.
I will say with Dirk's group though, we didn't have a lot of options after the other vendor. But, they stepped in. For the most part, they did a good job.
They did a very good job because they were starting behind the 8 ball because of the previous.
And they must be doing better because their building in Wausau now is a lot nicer looking. So
When they
I'm
move out
still
of
waiting
here,
for my
technology,
iPad that
that's
was bought 4 weeks ago, but I gotta wait for all this to get
We
straight.
gotta wait a little bit longer,
Longer than that?
a little bit longer.
Yeah. Chief, you got one down the fire department I could have?
No.
No? You're-
Yeah, one of you should-
No love.
you're all-
Wasn't even gonna fake it for you.
Before I forget, I think we better vote. And I'm amazed I remembered it this long. So all those
We're
in
amazed too.
favor of the motion to approve migration village IT to county IT department as of 1 April 2022 for the cost that was $25,000, broken down as read, will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Without objection, I'm by ordinance chairman of the plan commission, but so Boz can explain this as we go through once again. I'm going to ask him to make the motions for the plan commission. Is that okay?
So you have your minutes from the planning commission. We brought them together, the citizens, back in March, to discuss specifically some zoning issues, as well as our future land use map. It was a part academic discussion, the need for us to update some stuff, but then we needed some business done, and that's where you see the motions here. So the first motion that I would ask is the approval of resolution 2022-04. It's for the reclassification of all the attached properties and about 3 pages worth of parcel numbers. Attached properties, parcel numbers, see the parcel numbers, and certify them as approved residential 1 conditional use classifications at no cost to the residents, or property owners. This basically brings our zoning for those parcels in line. If you scan it, it's all our parks, it's all our trails, it's all our churches, it's all our schools. It just puts them in the proper category, so they're legalized in the eyes of our zoning as well as the state, and it moves us forward to address other concerns moving forward. So that's the resolution.
Second,
Who made the motion?
Oh, I did.
so you said, can he move? So I'm assuming Boz did.
Yes. So how do you want to be known here?
Well, I'm just-
Administrator Duncan,
yeah.
any discussion on as what was read? Or are you like me, just ready to put this to bed and be done with it? Okay, no request to speak. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The next business that was a discussion is that the village did not have an appropriate future land use map, is the proper terminology. This basically uses our current zoning. This is the big colored blow up you are looking at. This basically overlays the current zoning of the village and with future potential residential, business, as well as future road networks that's identified for planning and discussion. This does not change any zoning. This does not say that your parcel is going to be reclassified. It basically gives us areas, as the planning commission identified, gives areas of interest that the village would entertain a discussion with either a current owner or developer that comes to see us, that we would just go through the motions through the planning commission and this committee and this board to possibly change long-term future areas of the village to expand our tax base as well as residential properties, as well as business footprints.
Second?
second,
Okay, motion by the administrator, second by trustee Duncan. Discussion? Yes, Betsy.
So I see our property's got a big blue square around it. So if you would like want to permanently change it, we would have to have a discussion,
sure.
right? Like,
So-
or if we decide we want to move,
Yes,
it can be, hey, you can.
yeah, so perfect example there. So as the planning commission, we identified those 3 or 6 parcels
Mhm.
that are right now, and for the most part landlocked.
Mhm.
Identified those areas that are currently zoned agricultural and some other categories, I believe they're all agricultural. That if you see the road network that the village would eventually put in.
Mhm.
If that village road network goes into those areas, basically connecting our 3 subdivisions on the backside to avoid high traffic roads like Port and Leander or Verbunker in this case. That would open up all those parcels with the current owners that if a developer approached you and said, we want to buy you out because I want to put a subdivision in here, we as a village would entertain that discussion with that developer and the current landowners. And then we would do all the appropriate steps of resident notification, open sessions with the citizens, positives, negatives, and we would go through the planning committee, and then they would kick it up to the full board for a potential approval or denial. So all it is designate an area of, we're willing to talk to you.
Right.
The flip side of that is, right now, unless this board changes it, or the planning committee changes it out, the example I use is, right now, all of Seneca Road on the north side of the village, because of the combination of residential properties that are existing, we see no need to identify that area for potential business or expansion. That was just a discussion that we had based on the planning committee discussion. You see a little bit of blue interior there because we do plan to extend Bruner out into the boonies out there to try to open up that land for possible development. But the off limits areas, I'll say, are the ones that aren't identified. But that again could change if a planning commission came together or the board said, hey, let's talk about it. So this really just gives us a start point for discussion.
Any questions? Hearing no request to speak. All those in favor of the motion to approve the future land use map for planning purposes from February 2022 will signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? That motion carries. And then data, yes, years ago, they never had the village administrator be in as a voting member, an actual member of the plan commission. But when I got elected in 2017, we changed that, and only because it's common sense that he's basically, running the thing by getting all the information that's needed for the meetings. And that. So I just thought, well, why not have him be a voting member, and that was passed. So technically, then he can make motions.
okay. I wasn't really questioning it.
Okay,
I was. just
anything
trusting-
else, Mr. Chairman?
Nope, I was just trusting you, so
Okay, hope I pass.
that might have been a mistake on my part, but we'll see.
I know, you're going to school board. I'm gonna have to start going to those meetings again. They're always entertaining when you're there.
Well, anybody wants to complain, usually my just general persona wards that off.
Okay, item 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. Anybody have anything? Takes care of A. Item B, discussion by trustees on the need of the sexual offender ordinance for the village. Proposed language attached based on the PIT committee discussion.
Heard from Nick at 4:30 tonight. He finds no basis to question my proposals being unlawful or unconstitutional. So, I'm gonna go ahead and draft some language and run it by him, or I'll propose we meet for lunch or something and hammer it out. I'll have it for the next pit meeting, so they can look at it. I think that so for what it's worth, I am trying to figure out something that I thought would be helpful, but yet withstand judicial scrutiny if need be.
Anybody else?
I was gonna say, so I assume what's in here as designated offenders is just for our,
Just for information purposes, this is our attorney representing Nakusa and what they are doing, so we wanted a comparable. So yeah, this is not what trustee Duncan's been discussing, but it gives more information to feed whatever document we prepare, so.
okay, thank you.
So my concern would be, how much money do we want to spend on an attorney, our representation, without us having some consensus going forward in direction?
Rules suspended, free dialogue back and forth, if you will.
I'm drafting the language because I know what I want. So
But you're
and I'm
not a
doing it.
committee of one,
I'm not saying that I am.
but that's what it feels like.
Okay, well then I won't draft the language and we can incur larger legal expenses. That's what you want, I'll be glad to. I'm just saying that I'm willing to draft the language. Been practicing law for 33 years, or 32 years. I think I can draft the language. I was willing to do it for free for the village. It's not, because it's not a committee of one, because it still has to come before the committee and has to come before the full board.
So
I know the limitations of being one person on a village board with multiple people. If you don't want me to do it, fine, I will just let it die. You can do whatever you want in May.
So what I had emailed to everyone is the document that our attorney drafted for Nakusa, and was hoping that we could have a conversation about how we could make this framework of what Nakusa is discussing at their board meeting tonight, how this may or may not be a workable document for us to work from.
Well, and quite frankly, just because the city of Nakusa instructs their attorney to draft something pursuant to their prerogative does not mean it's lawful or valid or will stand scrutiny. I don't think it will. And quite frankly, let me just put this. I have told Joe this multiple times. I have a letter of resignation I carry in my briefcase because I have always said if I ever get into a position being on any public board or service or anything I ever do, that I feel uncomfortable or feel like I have to compromise my integrity to do, I would submit my resignation right now. If you want to propose this and it passes, you have my immediate resignation, because I don't think it's lawful. I swore to uphold the Constitution. I hold that dear because it's my profession. I've spent the majority of my life trying to do that. So I don't think it would work. So just me.
Can I ask, are there specific reasons why you don't think it would work? Like, is there specific language in here that it just wouldn't?
It
Be
exceeds the
constitutional.
broad scope. You have a very thin line because, for example, right? If Joe Jones commits a murder and he spends second-degree murder, spends 30 years in prison, and he's released on parole. Once his parole is done, do you know what happens to Joe Jones? Nothing. You have a murderer living potentially next door to you with no ramifications. There's nothing you can do. He's served his time. Only in the area of sexual assault do we place restrictions on people after they have served the commitment that the courts have indicated is representative of the commitment they've done. I understand because the ramifications of it altering and affecting lives, especially those of children.
Mhm.
Okay, but because of that, that is a very thin line that we have to go. We have to look at what is necessary for protection of the public versus overreach against somebody who has already served the amount of punishment that the courts have deemed necessary. So you have to weigh that and balance it. If you exceed it and start imposing restrictions on them that are beyond what is necessary to ensure the public, you've overreached, it'll be struck down, and what will end up happening is then you'll have people all over saying you can't do anything at all. You'll have offenders who will be thumbing their nose at it because you have overreached and they think they can get away with it. I don't come at this very lightly. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, of how we could actually accomplish something without the courts telling us we were wrong and that we can't do it. And without getting to a point where we're exceeding what we should be doing. There's some people who think we should have absolutely no ability to do anything. And I don't think that's necessarily correct. So that's why I went this route, because I think there is a few things we can do. It's just we have to be very careful. And if we're talking about legal fees, if we put in place something and try to enforce an ordinance, we could end up in court fighting. It could end up going to circuit court, court of appeals. Seldom does the Supreme Court actually take a writ of certiorari anymore. They only do 20 or 30 cases a year. So we wouldn't have that, but I mean, it's just, we're basically talking about $25,000, $30,000 in legal fees if we have to defend it.
Okay.
Now, I understand if that's necessary in order to protect, because maybe $25,000 and $30,000, or at least as far as I'm concerned, to protect a child is worth it. But is there a way of protecting the child without spending that money? That's the question.
I think that's difficult for me to comprehend. You have a felon that gets out of prison and they lose their constitutional right to bear arms.
No, they don't.
Is that
Not in the state, not in the state of Wisconsin. In the state of Wisconsin, once you have completed, depends on what it exactly you do, because if it's domestic abuse, you lose it. But if it's non-domestic abuse, once you've completed your probation and parole, you can vote, you can bear arms, because you've served your time. The only individuals in this state who continue to have problems or continue to lose rights once they have served the sentence imposed by a duly elected judge in the state of Wisconsin is a sexual offender. In fact, the worst crime that you can commit is multiple offenses of sexual assault in the, or to minors in the state of Wisconsin. It is the sentence to be imposed is worse than first-degree homicide by statute. So, and I understand perfectly, I deal with these people on an everyday basis. I have clients who have suffered gravest injuries. I am so tired of seeing the impact of this on life and on people. It makes me ill some days, and some days just wants to have me give everything away and live on some deserted island by myself. But you have to trudge forward sometimes and do the best you can with what you have, because there's always going to be challenges of weighing options. If you want to present it, I mean, I'll have the language. I will draft it with, I will have Nick work with, or I'll work with Nick to draft the appropriate language. At that point in time, we'll present it. If you want to, Tara, present your version from the city of Nakusa's version, or to modify it in some way, or if you have suggestions to Nick to do, we'll do it. We'll present both at the meeting. We can do up or down, whichever way you want. It'll be 3 people there. At the very least, it might be better for me to just say it instead, we'll suspend the rules and send both to the full village, and you can choose which of the 2 you want. Or the third option is do absolutely nothing. I mean, it bothers me. I understand. I mean, what is it? 3 houses down from me? 3 houses down from me, or from Eric. What is it the other way from you? 3, 4?
I don't think at this point, I agree with what you're saying. We don't have, and I have worked a lot on this, and I have read and looked at a dozen different ordinances around the state. For us to attempt to, and I've shared this with people that have contacted me about this concern, for us to attempt to regulate placement, we can't. It's gonna be not defendable. As this reads, this seems to be, this circumstance of child safety zone seems to be something that is being commonly used. I believe down in the Dells, and this as it's presented is, I don't know if you guys all had a chance to read all of this. It creates safe zones like that we could just, there would not be child sex offenders in our disc golf course, in our parks where kids are alone. I find it more concerning that we address where the kids are alone than, it's automatic. They're not allowed around schools. Well, at the schools, they have adult supervision. And I get what you're saying about going to the probation and parole. My concern with that, I don't think they want the responsibility. And they're not reliable and invested in our community. I just think this is our responsibility to not hand off to them. They're not invested. They can't. Their job doesn't offer them that option of caring about each little community concern. It's not in their job. And I would be very surprised if they would be comfortable on signing off on something. And for everyone that wasn't at our committee, Dana, do you want to present your?
What I'm suggesting is that the onus is placed on the offender. If the offender wants to or be on village property or any public facility, including the school district property, the only way they can do so is to have advance consent from their probation agent. As long as they're on the sexual offender registry, they have to have a probation agent who's going to oversee, because that agent is going to oversee where they're living and the notifications and stuff. There are certain rules that also have to be followed, as far as contact with minors and such. By placing it on them, it allows law enforcement without even reasonable suspicion, which is the general stop and frisk under Terry v. Ohio, says that you have to at least have reasonable suspicion that something is going on. You wouldn't even need to do that. If you see an offender who you know is an offender who's on the list, law enforcement could go up at that point and say, do you have permission to be in the park? If they say no, they can be removed. If they say yes, it can be checked. If there is no consent from the agent, then they can be charged with obstruction of justice, which is a class A misdemeanor. They can also have their probation or parole revoked or be placed in custody for up to 60 days without even action by the agent to bring them back before court for sentencing or for modification of sentence. So it's not a small punishment for lying. If they have the consent, then at least somebody has made some reasonable consideration, hopefully. There's always going to be exceptions as to whether they should or shouldn't be allowed in those situations. I thought that was a way of controlling the public areas. It gives law enforcement an added tool in their arsenal and does not necessarily violate anybody's civil rights to do that. Nick's statement to me was it is no more onerous than the requirements that they have to get consent to live in a certain neighborhood from their probation agent. And so he didn't think there would be any problem. He found nothing anywhere in multiple jurisdictions, he said, which leads me to believe he at least searched other states that said that this would be a problem. So if that's the case, I think we would be on very solid ground and would give our police department an opportunity to really be able to control a little bit more better than just having nothing in place, who goes where and when. And that would include places like when they have the street dance or when they have the fireman's picnic, or, we have no guidelines, we have no requirements as to where they can or can't go, but that would be on public grounds and in a public setting. They would need permission to be there because, the problem comes in that if you just do child safety zones, unfortunately, what's going to happen is you're going to have a certain percentage of the population who thinks that now their children are automatically safe. And what do you do if the child's picked up at 4th and Verbunker and they're not at the park yet, which is the child safety zone? And it's that location where the offender is acting. The best line of defense for protection of children is active, concerned, involved parents. I don't know how we could ever do anything ordinance-wise to encourage that. I would hope that people would, but I've seen too often that that's not necessarily the case.
Go ahead, Sue.
I just was gonna make one comment, which is kind of always my thing. I think we need to look at how effective those restrictions are gonna be. And you just pointed out one example, and I think they're, to look at this. And what's interesting to me about the Nakusa thing is the parent who is most likely to be an offender is allowed to be at occasions that are happening with his or her child. So, yeah, I think we need to look at this in a different light of how effective restrictions are.
If I could, Eric?
I can make a comment after you, if you want to go first.
Okay, I was just going to suggest Dana gave a pretty good roadmap. I think my first, not concern, but objective is, since this board has put in a lot of time on this issue, I would hope to have some decision made on moving forward at the April 12th board meeting. Doesn't mean if it doesn't happen, well, it just goes to the new board on the 19th. However, I think Dana said basically, if I understood you right, at your meeting in April at the pit committee, that you're gonna have a yay or nay situation on this, if I understood properly.
Well, either that or that we just move both our own version of the city of Nacusa's ordinance forward and present both to the board and they can act. I would assume what we would do is we'd put both on the agenda and it would be, one would be moved into adoption, and if it's seconded passed, the other would die.
As chairman, that's your decision, what you want to do on that, and bring it forward.
I have no intention of closing debate.
Okay.
Everybody has to vote their conscience. I'm just telling you what my conscience is.
Good.
So I hope that I'm impassioned by this simply because I have very deep feelings and very deep concerns both ways. And I want to have something that actually makes a difference. So
We
if I'm
have,
a little strong, I apologize.
we have a decision made. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly that it go again to pit. And I would just like to ask if nobody objects to a 5-minute further limit on this issue, or do you feel comfortable moving into Chairman Duncan's committee next time? And like he said, it's, you know, he has no intention of cutting off debate. What's your feelings?
Well, I just have one comment before you get into that. I have 2 sexual offenders in my family tree. One being a serious crime, and it brought some of the wording into the Nacusa thing. I just have some not really issues with, but you know, basically it's saying that all persons convicted, not saying if they've completed the process. You know, I think I envision a sexual or a person that's out on parole or whatever. That's, yes, something to that effect. But I have a great uncle, had a situation with his granddaughter, went to prison for a long time, got out, the family forgave. He served his time, he jumped through all the hoops. And I think if you were to take away some of the or put some of these in a safe zone or whatever, and I'm not saying every person is like that. There, for every couple over here, there's a couple over here. Another case that I have is an 18-year-old conceived a child with my 14-year-old cousin. And I think the state of Wisconsin, age of consent is 16, something like that.
18.
No, it's 16, age of consent. It just reduces it from a class B felony down to a class A misdemeanor.
Nothing really serious came out of it. He eventually had 2 more children with her, but his name had to be on a sex offender list, and he was not able to go to certain parental events, school events, stuff like that, when the family consented for it,
Right.
basically. So I see those 2 things just from my little tree, and that's not a lot. That may limit this. You know, I can't say if my family forgave my great uncle, you know, enough, and he served his probation, he did his time and all that, and then for them not to push their granddaughter on a swing, you know, that's the only thing. And then the other thing, the last thing, is the whole appeals process. I think we just need to stay out of that. I mean, that to me is like a police thing. I don't think if we kept somebody at a park and then have them stand in front of us, we're not gonna know what questions to
Yeah,
ask.
I would agree with you that the board, it would need to be separate necessarily from us, but and I'm not saying that this is the perfect document. This is the closest
Mhm.
thing. But, and one of the things that I had mentioned is exactly the things that you're saying, that there could be an offender that is a parent and has done their time and whatnot. And that's where I think we could work on at the appeals process part, which is becoming a common thing. That a parent could, have permission to go to the ball games with the family, do
But
things
that's a
that,
slippery slope too, I think, because if you get the parental consent and then something does happen, I'm not gonna go after that offender, I'm gonna go after the parent.
no, I'm saying that he could, in the group, not be at the parks alone, but with going to watch the kids play. I think there's room. This is not I think that the starting place of this is a great starting place. I'm not presuming that it's the finish line.
Okay.
For exact reasons that you're talking about.
We in agreement to move this then to Pitt? Okay, I will move everything back onto the table. Anything else under new business? Okay, Boz, all your,
Have your monthly report for the month of February. Nothing of great concern. I would highlight. Tied to Public Works, we have seen just in 2 months, and we're all living it in our other lives. Just in 2 months, a close to 35% increase in just in our village fuel costs. So obviously not really budgeted for. So I just want to give everyone here a heads up that over the next few months, we're gonna really scrutinize how much we use, what we use, and maybe need some financial adjustments as we move into this year, depending on how long this goes out. This also ties to all our construction projects that are contracted, and you heard it from the airport folks, contracted and expected. I will almost guarantee that based on oil and product increases, they will come back to us with a bid increase. Otherwise, they'll just say that I can't do it. And we have not signed anything with them. It's just a commitment. There's a signature of commitment to work, but there's always the loopholes in these contracts where prices go up, we can charge more. So I just want to, again, heads up, we will manage it as best we can, but we're all living it in our day-to-day lives as well. So I'm just seeing those tick up as we go on. No issues on safety and security. You see the police and fire. We are done with our Cranmore adding to our fire department. So they will pay us an additional, I think it's $1,000 this year, part of the fire contract. And we will monitor that if it needs to be increased, moving into fire grants for or fire contracts for next year. So that's a good thing for the fire department. Going to general government, on the 16th of March at 09:30 in the morning at the Legacy headquarters. I believe it's actually going to be at the bank across the street from Legacy. What's the name of that bank? Wood Trust. So at Wood Trust Conference Room, Legacy is going to hold our pitch to them for our $500,000 grant. So if anyone's available, I will be there giving our 20-minute spiel. We've submitted our slides. If anyone's available to be in the audience, I really very lean on the slides, more of a discussion with them. These are, high-ranking individuals in our county here. So I would, it'd be nice to have some trustee support at that meeting. So when they ask some questions, or you guys can speak to your points of why we want to do this to increase the river walk as well as add to our park system. So that's it. That's at 9:30 in the morning. We only have 20 minutes, so it's very structured. So that's a Wednesday, 09:30 at the Wood County Trust.
Only in person?
It is in person, yes, sir.
is that the downtown branch?
Yeah, downtown Rapids, yes, sir.
And at 9:30?
Yep.
In their conference room.
In the conference room, second floor, they say it's Wood County, yeah, or Wood,
Date
Trust.
one more time.
16 March. FYI, I've been asked to speak at the Elks Club tomorrow morning for their breakfast. It's specifically to Vietnam veterans. This is a big month for Vietnam veterans, tied to some other ceremonies. So they wanted me to speak to their group. I'll have a short little spiel to them, motivational speech. It's an interesting thing when you do the demographics. World War I through Vietnam, not a lot of folks left. Vietnam is the tipping point. After Vietnam, it's a downward spike. That's a good thing. We don't go to a lot of wars, but our Vietnam vets are the biggest population of our veterans in general. And the point of my speech is we as veterans, they as the biggest population, just need to get out and speak more and get kids, pass that information on to kids. Not the gory war stories, but the goodness that we do to serve our country. So that's kind of what I'm emphasizing to our vets there. And one last thing on zoning changes. I went to the league's zoning meeting here in Clover a couple weeks ago. Some good ideas on what we can do in zoning. We kind of started it with our future land use map, but something that you'll see surfacing through Pitt as well as our planning commission is that I will start relooking at how we categorize our accessory buildings in the village. Right now, we're very restrictive on accessory buildings, not only what their uses for, but dimensions and size and whatnot, because we really treat an accessory building as kind of like just a garden shed or a garage. I think overnight, by an administrative action, if we do it the right way, we could really increase the footprint of additional housing in the village if we looked at more of them as what I'll call either a carriage house or a mother-in-law suite. So we're able to accommodate that structure on a parcel, the appropriate setbacks, but then it gives a second feature of housing, and their emphasis was main house, elderly couple wants to downsize, they're just gonna rent their big house, they move into the carriage house. So they're still in the property, they're still a landowner, they're still responsible, but then it now opens up two opportunities of housing, not just one. So it was an interesting concept that we control at our zoning level. More to follow as we
Same
discuss.
tax ID number?
Yeah. Part of the restriction here would be not only the aesthetics of the property, so we don't have a bunch of,
Mini houses?
yeah, or, massive sheds in the background, but also the owner of the parcel has to be on the property. So it's really meant to be it's a second use. So we avoid rental flop houses. So yeah, those are restrictions that we can control. That's all I got. Some any questions?
Well, this is one of my rare moments where I'm up to date.
Here goes
You use the
dearly
term-
departed.
You use the term, you should use she shed.
She shed, yes, that's right.
Moving on, Diane's not here. She have a commitment today?
She's on vacation this week. She's gone all week.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I thought Kim usually filled in.
Well, she was going to, I told her not to because Kelly was supposed to be here, so little snap.
So we're out. Boy, you sure.
Yeah, it's all right. We got it.
Okay, trustee comments? Eric?
This could be our last meeting, depending on the election. I'd like to thank Dana for the time that we've spent since.
You're still on April 12th.
No,
Yeah, we still are.
we have one.
No, we gotta go.
I
Put
thought I
in your
looked.
goodbyes just yet.
Yeah, we gotta go to that.
All right, fine, I'll skip it. I do have another thanks though.
appreciate
You better be tearful next time. Just saying.
I want everybody to make notice that Chief Warden had his first fire. The one over off of Levine. It was his
Sorry.
first. It was right down from his house.
Yeah.
But it was his first fire on his own. And, I mean, it's kind of, I won't say those words, but it's, he did well. From what we saw, we've gotten, other people had taken notice of it and stuff, and I'd just like to thank Jason, for stepping up to that chief's role. And, I think we're in pretty good hands. So I just want to say that.
Well, thank you, Eric. I was far from on my own though, as you put it.
Yeah, but you're nervous enough.
All I want you, chief, come budget time, you make sure you bring that up. And you did all the favor or compliments that Eric just gave you. It's gotta be worth more in your paycheck.
You've been recorded, right?
Yeah, there you go. All righty, anybody else?
Well, if anybody needs to talk to me, I'm gonna be in and out over the next several days. My son is supposed to have surgery on Thursday. In fact, because of some confusion and such, I was actually almost had to have driven down to Madison this afternoon to be there to help him, and was going to appear by video from there. But So I'll be in and out over the next couple of weeks, so. He 31 has to have surgery for diverticulitis, so, which is unusual for somebody that young, but when you eat as poorly as he does, it happens, so. But, so I will be in Madison, helping take care of him for part of the week. His sisters are helping and his mother and such, so. Just call my cell phone. It's with me all the time if you need me.
Good luck with that.
Thanks. It's just, it's one of the things that why I have to start thinking about,
Not bringing McDonald's to the meeting.
that's because I got chicken. But no, I have a lot of other commitments, and so I have to start weighing things, and as my children get older, and I have much less energy than I used to. No. Yeah.
Anybody else? Raj, you want to run through the schedule pretty quick?
I did go a little bit further past the board meeting because of all the moving pieces with the election and so on. So we do have a planning commission coming up in a few weeks. Then it's Public Works will be on track for 17 March, Public Parks and Rec 24 March. Then we have our public safety on 5th, same day we're doing our elections. So no changes on those dates or times. That same week after the election with the current board members, FHR and Pitt will meet on the 7th of April. We'll do our regular monthly board meeting with the current trustees. And then what will happen on the 19th will be the new reorg meeting with the swearing in as well as an election of a vice president that night. And then with the newly sworn in board, we'll hit the 23 April strategic meeting at the Mead Hotel. So that should take you out through the majority of April.
Anything else? If not, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 2023 hours. Thank you, everyone.
Eric, if you would like my chickens to have licenses,